opportunity. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean that you won't get another. Another is coming down the pike. I start my day editing with coffee. And that's because I really want to start the day with my mind in total focus mode and total focus and zeroing in on the task of the day. So, and I'll drink coffee throughout the day. I always have a cup with me, and it's always about half full. And if I'm having trouble, like during an edit, I'll often get up and get some coffee, not to drink more coffee, but to get up and get away from the box for a minute and to think about what's going on. I will pour a cup, I'll take a sip maybe or something, and I'll come back and it'll help me just give me a little distance so when I come back to the problem I can edit. Then usually what happens is I sit down in the chair, boot the system up. I've been given 5 pages or some amount of pages, or that we have a scene we're supposed to edit, or there's been decisions about something that needs to be done in the film. And we'll start attacking that, and we'll go right at it. Sometimes my director will be sitting next to me. Sometimes they will be remote. We're talking on the phone, or we're talking on Zoom or Skype, and we will work that out. When I'm editing, I might do an assembly, like, okay, here are the sound bites we all want. Let's listen to them and decide which sound bite is best in this group, or what's boring, what's not working. But generally speaking, when I'm cutting, I'm fine cutting. Mostly I'm fine cutting because I never want to give a situation where the producer wants to watch something that is not well cut. All my edits I spend the time right at the beginning, right then and there, making all the edits as good as I can. I build the audio bed first, generally speaking I do, of interview bites, narration, sound, music even. I get all that kind of going, and then I'll start looking at the picture. It's not that I haven't cut picture in, it's just I haven't focused on it. Then I'll really look at the video and I'll start looking at the scene. One of the things I find really annoying is when, especially in documentary, is when there's a guy or a woman talking on screen, and then it cuts away to some B-roll, and then it comes back to the guy on screen. I don't call it B-roll. We're going to cut away to a scene here. And I really, especially in documentary, I try to cut every piece of non-talking head video as a scene, a progression of shots. Frontline is public broadcasting, so there's an obligation to kind of put stuff out to the public and make that stuff available to the public. So the films go out on YouTube. There's the Transparency Project, which I don't think any other news organization in America or around the world does, which is all the interviews in the films, all the major interviews in the films that we make are transcripts that go online in total. So you can see what we've edited. You can see what we've taken out. So we're not afraid of saying, look, this is what this person said to us in essence in the film. Because we have to cut it down. The show's only 50 minutes long. When the interview is 3 hours, you have to cut stuff out. There's no way you can't get all 3 hours in. A lot of journalists have told us that the interviews that we put online, especially during the Second Iraq War, were very valuable because they were able to use them for the books that they wrote in terms of like what was going on and stuff like that. So Frontline's very, very open and very as transparent as it can be about getting that media out to the public. At Frontline, most films are made by independent producers. Currently, there are no in-house producers for Frontline. All the producers are outside independent producers who Frontline hires because they have a good film. Frontline is sort of a publishing house. In other words, it'll have films of all kinds of genres inside Frontline. What they're really looking for is talented producers and directors who are making films that are of a public affairs nature. That's sort of the broad stroke. So I was the only in-staff editor at Frontline, mostly because what they needed me to do is to help these filmmakers bring their films in and bring them to a level that would be considered a Frontline in terms of the journalism, in terms of the quality of the cutting, in terms of the quality of the production. I would act sort of as that sort of person that would come in at the end and try to bring it home. But even still, I would work with one director 2 or 3 films a year. Generally, I only have one assistant editor, but there are a bunch of researchers, assistant producers, fact checkers. There's an incredible editorial team at Frontline that does the sort of editorial review of the content. They are journalists par excellence, and they'll attack a film and make sure that it can stand on its journalistic legs, which I have always been very proud of. Really, it's a quality team top to bottom. Sit in an edit room for 10 weeks and edit a film soup to nuts. So that's from day one, sitting in the chair. But generally speaking, all the media is already in the box, so I don't have to get the media in on the media composer. But sometimes I do that as well. And then so I edit for 10 weeks. We show the film probably around week 7 or 6 or 7 to the executive producers. And that's sort of an interesting process, actually. At that point, those first 6 weeks of editing, the film is really mine and the producer directors, right? It's our film. We are making the best film we can given the media we have. And often I say that the story is in the footage. If you are really working with the footage and really cutting that footage to its maximum, the right story will emerge from the footage. And or the narrative will emerge from the footage. And so we try to make the best film we can. Then we show it to the executive team, the executive editor and the executive producer and some other sort of senior people. And at that point, the film becomes Frontlines, right? It's no longer my film and the director's film. It's now become the series film. And so we have to, and sometimes that's a hard transition to make. You have to stop thinking about it in terms of your film, and you're now thinking of it, it's not like either or, it's actually grows to become the series film. And you have to start thinking about it in terms of what it is that they want the film to be for them, to the benefit of your film, to appeal and to reach a bigger audience. So, then you have to adjust the film to do that. And then that's approved, or maybe another set of changes, but basically that's what happens. And then you go into the online process where you conform, and color correct, and do a final mix, and put all the packaging elements on and put it together. And then the file is sent to DC for PBS to broadcast around the world and to put up on YouTube and et cetera. The post-production team is huge. There's several editors who do color correction. So over the year, we have shows every Tuesday. Only, I would say, 12 or 13 are new in that cycle. They're either repeats or updates. So what happens is all that media sits on a hard drive, and the hard drive goes into a closet. And one of the interns' job is that every year, all those drives are booted up and made sure that the drives are intact in the media. And they go back into the closet and stored for another year. And then they come out and the booted up and they go back. And that's handy because then 2 editors can work on the same project, work on the same media. And I like it all. It's really amazing technology. Back in COVID days, we would do reviews where the whole team would get together and watch the show on Sony C and evaluate the show, did that kind of thing, so we didn't have to be in the same room together. Sony C's been another valuable resource for Frontline. What I especially like about Frontline documentaries is that Frontline documentaries do not have a position. They are an exposition of opposing forces. So there isn't a good guy and there isn't a bad guy. There are just two or more forces that are opposed or in conflict or are juxtaposition to each other. And the front lines are about that juxtaposition or that conflict between two forces. Everyone is given a fair shot to say their point of view, to get their idea across. I have very strong feelings about how positive an experience becoming an editor is for young people. There's a path. It is hard work. It can be daunting. But I think it all boils down to this idea of preparation meets opportunity. As an editor, no matter what your experience level is, an opportunity for you to become a documentary editor, feature editor, or any kind of editor, television series editor, those opportunities will come. Whether you can capitalize on them so that your career starts to take off will depend on how well prepared you are for that opportunity. And if you should just remember as a beginning editor or editor on their career, if you don't get the opportunity, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean that you won't get another. Another is coming down the pike. You just have to constantly prepare yourself to be the best editor you can be. Let's talk about what that means. That means understanding what media is when it's acquired in the field, what the technical specifications of that are, what is the process of getting that media onto a hard drive for various forms of editing software. I would definitely put Avid at the top of the list just because I think it's a professional tool, but I would also know Premiere, I would also know DaVinci, I would know others for Final Cut. The other thing I would do is I would surround yourself with people who are of like minds in terms of the kind of work you want to do. If you want to become a documentary editor, you should be surrounding yourself with people who make documentary films in any capacity you can, being an intern, being friends, hanging out, going to films, whatever it takes. If you want to do rom-coms, you should hang around with people who are comedians and do that kind of thing and keep it in your belt. is it doesn't mean you can't jump, but it means that to get in, you need to be as prepared as you can be into the field you're most interested in. And then the final thing I would do is I would cut anything I could get my hands on. Cut with, and someone else watch it who will critique it religiously, who won't be your best friend or your mother and say, oh, isn't that nice, dear? You did such a good job. You're such a wonderful person. You want the person who's going to sit there and say, I don't understand this. That is a really, I found that cut really jarring. Your job as an editor is not to necessarily look at the spot they're pointing at and saying that's wrong there. Your job as an editor is to understand where earlier they got lost so that was the point that they said, I have a problem. 80% of the time, the place where they have a problem, you'll look at it and say, that's a fine cut. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't get it. It's perfect. It's because it's not that necessarily that cut. It's something that led up to that cut, that's where they became lost or confused or upset or didn't like. So you have to be able to look at the whole sequence and understand why at that point they lost. So I think that for young editors today have the fantastic opportunity because they're ahead of the game. I had to learn how to edit by editing in an environment where tools cost $100,000. You can all learn how to edit on tools that cost nothing. I believe DaVinci is a free software for cutting. Start cutting if you want to be an editor. I have become much more interested in helping young filmmakers and young editors make films. My passions are slowly turning towards mentoring and fixing films. There are still films at Frontline that I don't cut that I wish I had cut. So I'm feeling that's going to be carrying on for a long time. But that's sort of my aspiration.